the video on a fried tomato lasagna. So I've been faffing around recently with frying tomatoes and adding them into things. So I was kind of thinking that we really should do it with well, I did like a bake that was layers of fried bread and tomatoes, and it was delicious. And I was kind of thinking, well, we really should. If you don't want to do that, let's just do one that's a lasagna, because the tomatoes are really nice when you fry them. Really, really nice. It kind of concentrates the flavour. You get a little bit of caramelisation, and as long as you cook them in well, I suppose you could cook them in olive oil, but I'm cooking these in chicken fat, so you kind of get the flavour from the chicken. You get the flavour from the chicken fat as well. Lard would be fine. I suppose a little bit of beef dripping. But what we're wanting to do, so we're wanting to not cook the tomatoes all the way through. So we don't want them soft. We want them to hold the shape. But we're going to fry them to soften them slightly and to concentrate the flavour a little bit. And then we're going to season them well. And then we'll lay them up with some sheets of lasagna and see how it turns out. Now, what I have done is I've poked out all the excess liquid and seeds from the tomatoes, and that's there because I don't want the seeds in it. And while we're frying, we don't want a huge amount of moisture in the pan, otherwise it's not going to caramelise the bottom of the tomatoes in the same kind of way. I want that concentration and that slight caramelisation on the bottom of the tomato as we fry. So fry these, and then I think because lasagne sheets need a certain amount of liquid to cook them, and well, I think they're already cooked, but to rehydrate them they need a certain amount of liquid. So we will see how much liquid comes out of these tomatoes after we fry them and put them in the container, and see if we think we need some more liquid. And if we do need some more liquid, what I'll do is I'll get the stick blender in there, puree up all the little bits of pulp, and then we'll strain it through a sieve, so we're not putting the seeds in because I don't really want that. And then going through the freezer, we've got a bit of cheese from the freezer to go on top, so we'll make a white sauce, just a simple white sauce, and we've got some feta as well. So I've always got feta to use up from leftover functions, so we'll put some feta in it as well. Don't have to. I think there'll be enough flavour in the tomatoes once we've fried them to make a good flavoured lasagna. So how are these looking? A little bit longer. So I'll get these caramelised, but you can see that the liquid's starting to come out of them, but I want them to hold the shape. I don't want to make a roast tomato lasagna. I want a fried tomato lasagna. Now, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, well, you could just roast them in the oven. The problem with roasting things in the oven as opposed to frying them is that it takes longer for the oven to cook, so things tend to go softer in the oven. So like if we were to roast these in the oven, by the time we've got some colour on them, they would have completely collapsed, and that's not what I want. I want them to keep that shape. So it's going to be a vegetarian lasagna. Well, ish. I'm going to use a bit of chicken stock in the white sauce, but I want that. I want it to be not just like slop in between the layers of pasta. That's caramelised enough. So let's have a look at these. There we go. So we've got that colour, but we still managed to keep the shape. That's even better as that one. So I've probably got the pan just slightly wrong over the gasket. So that's that. So we'll give these colour, and then we'll be back when I've fried these off and we're actually putting the lasagna together. Now, the pan will have picked up some juices as well, and the fat. So we'll try and get that flavour out of the pan into the lasagna as well. But you get the idea of what I'm doing, and hopefully this will be a relatively short video for a change. So we have all this glorious goodness in the pan, and I was kind of thinking how on earth we're going to get that out of the pan. I was thinking, well, we'll just use that liquid. So I have pured it and strained it, so it's just the tomato liquid from the centre of the tomatoes. So we'll pour that in, then that's going to lift all those caramelised, salty, fatty, tomatoey bits from the pan, and then we'll use that in the lasagna. We'll just reduce it a little bit, actually. That's what we'll do. We'll just reduce it, just because I think there'll be enough liquid in the tomatoes to cook the pasta. So we'll just reduce it slightly so there's less liquid. I don't want it a wet dish. I want it kind of quite dry, but that tomato juice is just lifting all those lovely bits from the bottom of the pan. So reduce this slightly. I'll have to be quick now. So if you want to reduce something quickly, what you do is you put it in a big pan that's got a large surface area so it evaporates quickly. So a pan like this is ideal for evaporating things quickly. Whereas if you were making a stock, what you want is a tall pan with a smaller surface area, and then you get less evaporation. So that's a random, of course it makes sense, doesn't it, because it's science, is that, you know, but it's sometimes I find myself thinking, someone says something, I was like, oh, of course, why didn't I realise that's why you do those type of things? So I think sometimes it's, even though most people kind of know the information, and I feel like I could be repeating myself or passing on knowledge that everyone just instinctively knows anyway, not everyone's going to know that knowledge, you know, so I feel like I'm sometimes repeating the same lessons in life, but not everyone knows. So that looks like, let's give it a taste. I won't stick my finger in, we'll just taste. Oh, that's delicious. So let's just turn that off, and then we'll put that back into the bowl that we had the tomato juice in, and then we'll have a look at it, and then we can decide. It's very dark, it's lifted up all those lovely bits from the pan. The caramelisation, slightly burnt, but it tastes good. So the flavour. So I think there's a good amount of juice in it. Let's risk it. Let's just put it in. Now we can't, that liquid, however we do it, is going to want to sink to the bottom anyway. So even if I put a layer of pasta on and then put this liquid in, this liquid is going to want to go down to the bottom of the tomatoes anyway. So that'll just have to be how it is. And it might just protect the bottom of the dish as well. So we should have just poured that into there, shouldn't we? But I just wanted to have a look at it. So we'll put that in there because it will fall to the bottom of the dish anyway, because of gravity. And liquids always want to find the lowest point, which is a bit of science for you. So I think I want some bits of tomato in between the layers. I can't put the feta in just yet because it's just still a little bit frozen. But I want a little bit of tomato in there. I want a little bit of tomato in there, just to fill those gaps, and we want a little bit of tomato in there, and then, but we can put the pasta on, and I think we'll do, hopefully we'll have enough for 3 layers, 6, ish, but we'll see. So I don't want to put cheese on the bottom layer, and then lasagne sheets. So what have we got? Break off the ends, corners like that, stick that in there. If the overlap it's fine, and then we just need a bit on the bottom there, just to fill in that bit, and a bit on, snap that off. Yeah, it's going to they'll overlap, but it'll be fine. It's going to be quite a juicy dish anyway. So then a little layer of tomatoes on top of that. We don't need to fill in the gaps on this second layer because we're going to put the feta on. So when the feta is defrosted, we haven't just got enough tomatoes for 3 complete layers, but it doesn't matter. Got some bits of tomatoes which I'll just have to fry off. So taking more tomatoes than I thought. Is it 5? Did I buy 5? I think I bought 5. But anyway, so feta on this layer. Let me spread those out a little bit. Feta on this layer, it's still frozen, and then another layer of pasta, another layer of tomatoes, another layer of pasta, and then cheese sauce on top, I think, and we'll give it a bit of a squish down. So when I put the feta on, we'll just give it a press down, just to squish these down a little bit, so we can fit more in. No, we can do that there, can't we? That's fine. So they're keeping the shape. There we go. That'll be fine. Yeah. So you know what I'm doing. We're back when it's almost finished. We're finished. I think it's going to be a bit too wet, so I put extra lasagna. I put an extra lasagna sheet in, or two, just to kind of soak up the excess liquid. And I think I've had to fry off the bits of the tomato trimmings as well. So you really need 2 of those beef tomatoes per layer to get enough tomato. I think it's going to be a bit wet. I'm going to say that now, but you know, I'm only doing it for myself. And then we've got about a pint of. So we'll put in about 100 grams worth of feta, and that's about 75 grams of the cheese on the top, but that's how much cheese you put on the top. Variable, isn't it? How much cheese you've got. So I think it's just going to be a little bit too wet with the moisture that was in those tomatoes and that extra moisture that I put in. So we'll see how it turns out. It might be a little bit wetter than I actually like it, which kind of defeats the object. So keeping the tomatoes whole, not cooking them down too much, so we get definite layers is what I wanted, rather than like if it was stewed tomatoes or roasted tomatoes, it would just be like a layer of soupy, liquidy, a little bit too wet per layer. Well, that would be kind of quite interesting, wouldn't it? There's another thought, isn't there? I could just do it with a roasted tomato soup. Oh, kind of crazy. Oh. So that's me thinking about something else. Me thinking that this would be the last thing that I do, and then already in my brain I'm kind of thinking, oh, we can do this again, and we can put a different kind of spin on it. So it's never ending. But the combinations of things are never ending anyway, aren't they? So I'm going to go swimming. I don't want to. I'd rather not today. But life is about forcing yourself to do things that you don't necessarily want to do, and you really should go to the gym when you don't want to. So, but to be honest, I never really want to go to the gym and have a swim. So we'll see how it is. I'm going to put it on about 125 while I go out swimming, and then it'll be in the oven for about an hour and a half, and it'll be ready for when I get home. And I'm starving and ready for something to eat. And then we'll just turn it up for the last half an hour, just to kind of crisp the top. But we'll see how it turns out. Let's see how it turns out. No, I think no. Yeah, so my other idea can be incorporated into something else that I was going to do. So that's okay. Otherwise, we'll just end up making far too many videos. But anyway, into the oven, 125, an hour and a half, and then turn it up for the last half an hour. It's ready. So let's have a look. Squeaky oven door. It's still a bit. So they're too full or there's too much liquid in it, it can slightly come over the top. Because you have a bit of foil in the bottom of the oven. But nice and crispy on top. That's probably down to the 2 layers of pasta put on the top. So scissors are always best for putting cheese on the top of things. And then the first portion doesn't get all the cheese. Lucky if you're the first portion, but unlucky if the second portion. Let's do it again. So then we'll just have a look. It might be better when it's cooled down a bit, but we'll see. Feels a little bit wet. Maybe it needed more pasta. Maybe it needed less liquid. I think probably more pasta would have been better way to go actually, rather than less liquid. Because you want that flavour, don't you? So, oh, that's okay. Ooh. That's okay. It's wet down the bottom, but it's held together relatively well. Is it cooked? Yeah, it's cooked. Let's stick that in there. We might take a picture of the next bit. But how does it look? What does it taste like? Oh, no, I might take a picture of that and taste out of here. Probably better cold actually. I think nice, but I think I'd be tempted to double layer the sheets of lasagna. I think I'd be tempted to do that. So instead of putting one layer, like one sheet of lasagna down, I think I'd put two and then another layer of tomatoes because it's just a little bit too wet. It's nice though. You know, considering it's just fried tomatoes, there's so much flavour in them. There's so much flavour in them that it gives the impression that there's more going on. Well, frying the tomatoes gives it that lovely flavour. So I'm going to say that's a success, and it's something that I'll be thinking about in the future when I do something like this. Because sometimes you make a ragu and the tomato sauce is cooking down for hours, and there's meat that needs cooking down for hours, and it's such a long process. Whereas if you could just fry off some thick cut tomatoes, push the seeds out of them, and then fry them, and then put them in a pasta. Let's call it a pasta bake like that. And that's delicious. But I think you could do the same. So you wouldn't need to lose sheets of pasta. You could put like a layer of pasta on bottom. So this is just cheap pasta from the supermarket. It's not particularly good quality, but you could put like a one layer of that in the bottom, then tomatoes on top, and then another layer of that, another layer of pasta, and build it up like that. And I think that would work really well as like a pasta bake, and then put a white sauce on top and maybe a layer of cheese in. But that's lovely, and so much flavour considering it's just fried tomatoes. That's quite remarkable.